Customer service is one of those things that we love and we get comfortable with in our home country, but we often don't give nearly as much thought to when we are moving to a new country or beginning a nomad capitalist lifestyle. And so today I'm going to give you a couple thoughts on customer service around the world and share about a half a dozen of the best countries as voted by our readers for customer service. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. I'm the founder of Nomad Capitalist, where we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you're treated best. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. So, growing up in the United States, customer service was a thing that is very much part of the culture. I think that the Americas in general, very much a customer service culture. There are certainly other places in the world, as we will touch on today. And if you have a particular country that you have been to and you think the customer service is just outstanding, please do leave a comment below. But I think especially for Americans, perhaps for Australians and Canadians and some others as well, when you're moving overseas, you want to be ready and you want to factor in if great service in a restaurant or at a shop is important for you. Factor that into where you're going. Do understand that some places are a bit more brusque, a bit more cold, more dour. They may not be rude, but that's how they're going to operate. And if you perceive that as rude, you either have to get used to that or you just might want to cross those places off your list. And so, coming from the US where you go to breakfast every Saturday morning with dad and, the waitress is always coming around, topping off your coffee, once more coffee, hun, once more water, hun. People don't realize that doesn't happen everywhere. Or, go out for dinner on a Saturday night and you finished half of your 1-liter gargantuan soda. I brought you another one just so you're ready for the next liter. And so that doesn't happen everywhere, especially if you're moving from the US. You're going to get used to, doing some of this, flagging down your waiter. You may get used to, asking for help in a shop. Not everywhere, but let's talk about 6 or 7 countries that people have told me, and that I happen to largely agree, are some of the best places for service in the world. The first one is Mexico. So Mexico, I've talked about being obviously next door to the United States, around these North American countries, Latin American vibe, great service culture. In fact, somebody said that hospitality is in the country's DNA, the way he sees it. And so you've got people who want to help. You've got people who you can work with. If there's a problem, they're not going to lash back at you. You can just resolve it nicely. And so I really think that especially if you're coming from kind of an American-style service culture, Mexico is a great soft landing because you're going to get a lot of attention. You're going to have people doing nice things for you, just people who care in general. And so I think that all over Mexico, Mexico City is the biggest city, certainly a bit of the New York of Mexico. I wouldn't call it nearly as gruff as New York. I don't happen to dislike New York. I've been to New York and they have plenty of places with good service. But Mexico City, a bit more gruff. The same you'd say in any big city, right? The smaller you go, the more helpful they're going to be. Perhaps not as worldly, but they'll be helpful. Okay. And so one place that got an honorable mention that was not mentioned by nearly as many people when I asked, but I think deserves a spot, was Colombia. A few people mentioned Colombia, and I think fewer people go to Colombia than go to Mexico. But actually service in Colombia perhaps may be nicer. May not be entirely better, but it's nicer and the people are nicer. And so if you go to Bogota, for example, some of the nicest people. One guy mentioned, even walking out in the street, you're going to find really nice people who are out there. Restaurant service, similar kind of vibe. A bit more, a bit less American, I suppose, a bit more isolated, or a bit more, within the South American context of doing things versus the North American way of doing things. So a little bit different. If you're coming from a Western country, it might be a little bit more of an adaptation. Certainly English is not as well spoken in most parts of Colombia. But what's funny is people from all the other cities that I know in Colombia say, "Oh, those people in Bogota are so rude." I'd love to see how these other people are. How these other people are. I've been to Medellin and a few other small places, but even in Bogota, they're very nice. And so a little bit nicer than Mexico City. Again, a little bit different, but I think both great places in Latin America. People have also, didn't really get mentioned much at all, but people mentioned Peru, great food culture. That could be one to look at as well. But back to the main list, Japan came up a lot. I've spent a lot of time in Japan, and definitely different, obviously a very different culture from what you may be used to, but some of the nicest people, some of the most helpful people, different kind of service culture in that my recollection from Japan is that most Asian countries really not a lot of tipping. Whereas if you go to Mexico, for example, very much an American, even U.S. style tipping culture. Most Asian countries are not like that, and so it's just about service. It's about doing a great job for people. And so whether you need help in a shop, whether you need help just even on the street. I think what's nice about a place like Japan, and why I've started talking about more places that are a bit more developed, South Korea, for example, Jersey, people like New Zealand, is that you have people that you can just go and talk to in the street. Now in Japan that's harder, most people don't speak English, but definitely the service culture, if you can adapt, is really very great in Japan. Another excellent service culture is the Philippines. Now this has more of the American vibe than a lot of other places in Asia, and when you walk into a shop in the Philippines, you often will have numerous people greeting you all at once. They're going to try and help you with a smile on their face. It's just a very welcoming place to go. Restaurants, same kind of thing. People are understanding, people are friendly, people are polite. Different vibe than in Japan, certainly, but very nice people there, and that was one of the places that did very well on the list. Again, whether you go to Manila, whether you go to any of the smaller towns, I've really found universally great service, people who are open and wanting to help. Different vibe, but open and wanting to help. One place that came up that I've never been a big fan of is Thailand. People said, oh, the service in Thailand is great. I have some reservations about that in all honesty, but I understand that perhaps Thailand is just not my thing. A lot of people said, hey, you go to a restaurant, you go to a food stall, you go to wherever, people want to help you. I found Thailand to be less the land of smiles than it's made out to be. Now, I'm a city person by and large. I like going out and escaping to rural areas, to the farm, to the finca in Colombia, whatever the case may be. But I like to live in some kind of larger city. So I think if you go to the smaller cities in Thailand, you get a little bit better experience. But you go to Bangkok, Bangkok is, in my mind, the New York of Asia. Hong Kong, I suppose, is also the New York of Asia. But there's a difference in Hong Kong where you wouldn't call it traditionally good customer service, but it's super efficient service. It's perhaps brusque, it's gruff, but everything gets done so quickly. It's enjoyable because you don't have to worry. You sit down in a diner, your breakfast is there 2 minutes later, you get it in, and they just want you to get out. So that's maybe like customer service in the traditional view. Thailand to be a little bit too much in the murky middle. If you've spent a lot of time in Thailand and you happen to think I'm wrong, I would encourage you to leave a comment below and tell me why you think I'm wrong. But definitely made the list. A number of people mentioned it, so I wanted to add Thailand to the list. The last one that came up, kind of a wild card. It got mentioned a couple of times, and I find it to be interesting, which is the UAE, United Arab Emirates, of course, home to Dubai and Abu Dhabi, what have you. What I like about the UAE is you've got such a vibrant immigrant culture with people from all over the world. I remember talking to a guy, very, very successful guy once. We're sitting and we're talking. He said, Dubai has to be one of the most vibrant places where people are just eager to go. People are eager to get things done. There's just an energy there. And part of it is, for many people there, it's a land of opportunity. You can make good money. You can have a nice life. And on the other hand, if you show up and you don't perform and you come to the restaurant, you're the hostess and you're slouched over the thing and you're on your phone, like, what do you, you're probably not going to last very long. And what we've seen during COVID, for example, is a lot of people, in Dubai who had jobs, who lost their jobs, who were then scrambling to go out and get visas. And so, if you did a bad job, I think number one, probably has more weight against you going forward. Number two, if you lose that visa, who's going to want to hire someone who does a bad job? So there's a certain built-in service culture. And I've had such lovely conversations with everybody from the Uber driver to restaurant workers, because I love talking to people from all over the world. And I love talking about, Djibouti or Kenya or, all the places people are from. It's very fascinating. And you've got many people who like to open up and talk about it, and heard a lot of interesting stories. So I think that the UAE could definitely be pegged as a great service culture for that. They're really trying to create something that is great. And what I've always liked about the UAE, I understand it's not for everybody, but what I've liked about it is basically they're following our principles, which is saying, all right, who do we have to bring in? What do we have to do to be the best? All right? We're not going to say, well, that's what we've always done. That's the way we do it. Well, yeah, but your way stinks. So I like that they're saying, all right, let's dispense with whatever we're doing. Let's figure out, how we can build something better. Of course, no place is perfect, but from a service aspect, I think that may factor in that cultural aspect. So those are about half a dozen countries that have been mentioned as having great customer service. Again, if there's one you think should be included, do leave a comment below. And do understand when you're going overseas, this is something that you want to check out. This is the question that you want to ask. This is something that maybe you want to explore for yourself before you put down roots somewhere. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.